I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we will start with item 1, roll call.
Mike Bullitt.
Here.
William Beck. Colleen Lautenbach.
Here.
Allison Pint. Here. Shelby Poole. Greg Sade.
Here.
Carly Sherrill.
Here.
Jolene Squirrel. And Joe Valentine.
Here.
All right. And then we'll move on to item 2, which is our mission and vision. And Allison, you're up this week to read those.
Yep.
This month, excuse me.
The mission of WLA is to utilize leadership-based programs and strategies grounded in solid research combined with the demonstrated success of core knowledge curriculum as a basis of a rigorous overall educational program that builds strong skills in math, reading, literature, writing, music, science, and technology. The vision of WLA is to be a school where students and graduates become exceptional leaders and are prepared to take on academic and leadership challenges they will face in high school and beyond.
Excellent, thank you. All right, that moves us to item 3, which is the approval of our agenda. Any discussion on the agenda? If not, we'll entertain a motion in a second. Yes.
I thought it was, never mind. I was gonna ask if our presentation could possibly be moved up, because I just have to be at a certain time, but I don't think it'll be a problem, so never mind.
Okay,
Yeah, I thought it was much later. It'll be fine.
okay.
Then I'll motion to approve the December board meeting agenda.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Conflict of interest declaration, anybody have one of those tonight? I expect no. Okay, that brings us to item 5, and did I hear, we don't have any, okay, so item 5, there are no public comments tonight, so we can continue on to item 6, our board reports, and that takes us to 6.2. Jonas.
So our board reports, what does board report mean, item 6.1?
I thought that was
That would be for
typically
Shelby's.
Shelby's report. I have a facilities report, but I don't have any
Right.
specific board
So
report.
usually the chair kind of reports on behalf of the board. and
Correct.
Anything we need to report for the whole board.
Yeah.
That, okay, I'm remembering that now. All right, so can you pull up the link to the superintendent report? All right, so going through, right now our enrollment's at 880. We have with about another 6 or 7 students on extended leaves and another 1 or 2 starting after break. So if we were right at capacity with all of our classes, we would be at 886 right now. So we're right.
And that's
close.
right in the middle of the number we budgeted for, right?
Well, we
Or-
budgeted 882.
Okay, so right there.
And the finance reports say 876, which really don't make sense to me because we've rarely been as low as 876 during this year.
Mhm.
So I still don't quite understand that,
Okay.
but
And-
even if we are, I think we have a chance to be right around where we budgeted.
Okay.
We may at some point lower to 880 instead of 82 or something. but-
And there's no magical unicorn deal where all of a sudden that matches and it stays, right? This is gonna float a little bit.
As our enrollment changes,
Yeah.
that number changes.
Yeah.
But there's also, I mean, one of the reasons for discrepancy early in the year is a lot of times we talked about there's some overlap of students within our district, and they don't count for us until that's cleared up, but Cassidy feels like those have all been cleared, so we're still trying to investigate a little bit why it should be a few ADMs higher, but we're close. We opened our application process for next year. At this point, as you can see on the board, this has been updated since you maybe first read it, but last year on February 1st, when the day we do the lottery, we had 213 total applicants. Today, on December 19th, we have 206. So we've been getting about an average of about 4 a day right now. So pace we're going, by Saturday, we'll have as many as we had all, by the end of last year. So certainly our marketing efforts combined with word of mouth are continuing to increase the demand for our school. And we will have to make some significant decisions around, and a lot of this will be recommended at our January board meeting in terms of how we proceed, but how many sections we're gonna have at different grades and how we're gonna use the space we have. And some of it will depend on if we are able to, and where we decide to go, and if we're able to acquire some space across the street to have a few additional classrooms next year. So that will all come in January, but it will come fast because we'll want to make a decision on some things before that February 1st lottery, because how many sections we like to have will determine how many kids we have. So it's pretty hard, we can't really postpone it until after that. When we shared with families that we will let them know within a week of the lottery by February 8th, and then that they are expected to return their enrollment forms by the end of February in order to reserve their spot. Last year in February, we had an additional like 80 or 90 applications after that time. So certainly families need to turn it in, or we would replace with others. So, but anyway, point of that, things are moving faster than expected. From an instructional leadership standpoint, we've started our trimester 2 observations. We, staff members in December 6th received a training in how to effectively support English learners. Financially, we're right on track, continue to be right on track to meet our financial goals as far as we can tell. We continue to monitor that closely. We currently don't have any open positions. I have had conversations with our administrative team and had Nicole working to sign me up for as many job fairs and things as we can find in February and March. I would say the biggest concern isn't really the space or the number of students, but making sure that we have the staff, the high-quality staff that WLA is known for. And so my number one focus, especially when we get to even in January, because the one thing about in January is that teachers in traditional school districts are able to take a leave of absence to teach in a charter school, and they have to be granted for up to 5 years in the charter school law, but they have to apply by February 1st. So January is going to be trying to network with people I know in traditional school districts and seeing if there's anybody that we might get interested in, particularly looking towards our secondary school where we're likely to add 5 sections and need to add a math, a science, a social studies, a language arts, probably at least one Spanish teacher. Like we're going to need to add 5, 6 at that level, and it'd be nice to have a mixture of veteran teachers with, you know, some strong people out of college, a mixture, to not have a whole team of new teachers. And so that's really going to be my biggest focus, is around what we can do to really get the staff we want to have. In terms of providing for an effective and safe learning environment, really just a piece that we've begun looking at that space. We're in the process of preparing a potential proposal. I will share information about that with the board as it comes. I don't think we will, but it's possible that we could have to make a decision before our next board meeting on some things, in which case it would require us to have a special meeting if the timing of things work where, you know, we need to, especially if it's not like a slam dunk decision, what we would do. And we think that we may have some disagreement when we get to the meeting later in January, then we probably might need to do that depending on how the timing plays out. So we'll keep you posted on that. I did have a meeting along with Mr. Broderick, in the audience, with the city of Woodbury about our after-school drive line. They're not particularly concerned about the morning, but they have some significant safety concerns about the afternoon drive line, particularly when the line backs up beyond the entrance in our parking lot, the entrance that would be by the other building. They've stopped out a number of times to observe in the afternoon and witnessed a number of close calls on accidents that are the result of people in the drive line that are backed up there not wanting to wait in that line any longer and pulling over in the outgoing lane and coming forward and then turning into the parking lot at a pretty rapid rate. And so they said they witnessed a number of close to accidents with that. If everybody was following the expectations, you know, it wouldn't be a problem, but it's not happening consistently enough. And so they want us, we're not heavy-handed, they were very cooperative, like, we don't expect you to solve this tomorrow, but we want to see if there's something small you could do to come up with a plan that could keep the line from backing up that far, that wouldn't go to necessarily the extreme of having 2 separate pickup times. But that is something that could be on the agenda, or, you know, as we think about adding students for next year, even more, and tipping point, that could be a larger solution. The idea would be to pilot something smaller to see if we can make it work, and if it would be all workable for next year or not. So more to come on that, but we are meeting again in early July. We told them we wouldn't even have an opportunity to meet as a team and really come up with a plan until at least when we get back from break. So I think we're meeting the week after that. And so-
January or July?
January. I say July.
You should
Okay.
dreaming of better days.
He's ready for July already.
Right. So am I.
Sorry about that. Cassie, can you click or type in another link up there, our webpage address?
Yeah. Did it say mouse?
There we go.
Yeah,
No, just this one, just the landing page. So this is new. That launched in late July. I think it's a much better look than our, where we're landing. Right now, it just links to at the top one of 2 places. Either you go to apply, so click apply 2005. And so then that has information to apply, or to our current website. So, you know, if you just click the homepage, it's not our current, rest of our current website is not changed yet. That is targeted for February 1st. We're in the process and been working with Parent Square on it, but I think it's a pretty nice look, and that's been part of our marketing. Very nice.
Saw the billboard on 94, looks great.
You saw the bill right now, good.
Every day.
Yep, and it will move to a new location in early January for a month, on 694 and 94. So that's a piece. I went through our communications audit, the 23 recommendations, and just kind of looked at what have we addressed already and what haven't we, and was surprised that a whole lot of them have been addressed already. At some point before the end of the year, we'll do a presentation, follow up on that, and here's what the 23 things in there, and here's what we've done, and here's what we haven't done yet, and here's what we decided not to do. But it's definitely a piece. Blue-orange basketball game took place last week, was a huge success. Great turnout, it felt like a high school basketball environment almost, had our mascot Luna there. And I'm thinking that Mr. Broderick probably is just getting back from over at MSA. Do you have any news to report from MSA, from our first ever inter-school competition?
Yeah, so MSA scored 22 points against our Owls, but our Owls put up 58 points on the Dragons.
All right, well done.
First victories in the books.
Number 15, how many threes?
There was quite a few threes. If you were at the blue and orange game, our top scorer there was a student by the name of Naden. He was also the top scorer tonight. He had 24 points. So.
Oh, boy.
He's real.
Yeah, he's good. So, anyways, that is, I would say, the report. If there's any questions on the superintendent report. Wonderful. No news is good news.
Yeah, outstanding. That brings us to 6.3, finance.
All right. Financial report for November 2024. Reading through a summary of key financial indicators. Our average daily membership overview. Original budget is 847 ADM. The working budget is 882 ADM. And the actual enrollment is 876 ADM. The school's original budgeted surplus in general fund for the year is $233,463. The school is budgeted to spend $5,000 of the community service fund. A projected cumulative fund balance of $2,594,730, or 25% of the expenditures at fiscal year end. The school's working budget is projected a surplus of $252,637 at fiscal year end, which would result in an ending fund balance of $2,670,520, or 24% of total expenditures. Projected days of cash on hand is 65 days of annual expenditures. This is above 45 days and meets minimum bond covenants. The projected debt service coverage is estimated to be 1.24. Should the school bond in FY26, the required debt service coverage ratio will be required to be at least 1.2. If bonding is not completed in FY26, the debt service coverage ratio will need to be at least 1.1 to satisfy bond requirements. The financial statement, key points, as of month end, 41.67% of the year was complete. Cash balance as of the reporting period is $1,980,080 and is up from $1,881,714 in the previous month due to regular processing of transactions, as well as the receipt of a portion of the FY25's food service revenues. The revenues received at the end of the reporting period is 40.3% of the working budget. Expenditures dispersed at end of the reporting period, 36.2% of the working budget. Other items, the FY25 original budget was approved at the May 2024 board meeting. The FY25 working budget is being reviewed by Creative Planning and Administration at WLA for appropriate revisions and adjustments based on enrollment and actual expenditures. The FY24 financial audit will be submitted to MDE by 12/31/24. Following that report are the colorful graphs to support the data that I reviewed, as well as the balance lines. Are there any questions I may entertain in regards to the financial statements? Thank you.
Okay, hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve the report?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Nope. Now I have to do my finance committee reports?
A pox upon me. Yeah.
Thank you, though.
Yeah.
All right, so the Finance Committee met at our regularly scheduled meeting Wednesday, December 11th at 4:30. It was a virtual meeting. I unfortunately started the meeting but could not finish the meeting, and Jonas took over the meeting and continued to review financial statements. Those financial statements were all in track and within normal ranges. We discussed the change in the monthly timelines for sending the Finance Report to Committee. We're going to be sending it the week of the meeting instead of the Friday before. Also discussed the possibility of doing a winter budget revision, but concluded that was not needed. And they discussed financial ramifications of potentially leasing additional space for next year. Jonas, was there anything else you wanted to add from that meeting? No?
You got it?
Okay. They adjourned around 5:15, and the next scheduled meeting will be Wednesday, January 8th at 4:30 p.m., another virtual meeting. Any questions in regards to the Finance Committee meeting?
What potential concerns were raised about the leasing option?
Right, say again?
Any significant concerns raised about the leasing option if we go forward with that?
Not yet. I don't think we have the details enough to say, I mean, clearly, having the lease aid to cover the rent is not an issue. The challenge that we have to figure out is any cost that we might have to incur to prepare the space to use. And that is more of a concern, and is there ways to build some of that into the lease and the long-term plan to buy? And so those are the pieces that Sean Smith is working on, preparing a proposal for them that would address that, and I don't know what that looks like yet. So until we see what that looks like, I don't know if.
Do we know what the space that we would potentially lease, do you know what it's being used for currently?
It's currently where the spine clinic is. It's the whole bottom fourth of the building.
Okay.
Their lease doesn't expire until January next year, but they have another space to move to, so if we were able to work it out in time for them to get that space ready, they would prefer to.
So it's probably more smaller spaces would require knocking down walls?
So that 7,000 feet would require doing some things to make the classrooms where we want them.
It's pretty wide open, it's almost the opposite.
Oh, it's the opposite, okay.
There's not a lot of walls, no.
Yeah.
There's about an 1,800-foot space right now that they use kind of for a gym. And the question is, will we be able to get the classrooms we want if we keep that space? Or there's a lot of different things. So the architects are part of the next step to figure out what we would do and how many spaces it would be. The timeline's tight for us to be able to figure it out in order to make a well-informed decision about how many sections by February 1st. And so we're trying to push it as good as we can, as fast as we can, without without going so fast that we don't make a good decision and don't have the right all the information. And so,
And that upstairs space is kind of a non-starter, right? It's open, but it presents challenges.
well, what's nice about the bottom, if we're just starting with the 7,000 square feet in the bottom right side, is that the bottom left, if you're facing it, is the daycare, and they have their own entrance on the side. The bottom right, we can have our own separate entrance on the side that's built, and so we enter in our own space. We're not sharing the community entrance with all the businesses, and that would be problematic to do with students and businesses. And so, yeah, the other space that's open is diagonal, second floor on the other side, and the two don't go very well together. Maybe for some offices or some things like storage and offices, if there's some things that we really end up with needs, maybe. But it's also about a long-term plan, that what is the plan to us to get to the point to buy the facility, and all that needs to be built in. And so there's a lot of moving parts, and the timing is gonna be critical, because if we don't figure something out and they get somebody else who can rent it long-term, then the opportunity may go away. But we also have to have a plan that works with our long-term piece as well. Yes, sir.
Is this because I wasn't at the last meeting, sorry.
Of course.
Is this being prepared for a particular section of grades?
So, and yes, the thought is that ultimately, if we had the whole building across the street at some point, it would probably be grades 7 through 12. But that for next year, it would either be grades 9 and 10 or 8, 9, and 10, depending on what the architect comes up with and what we decide we want to do for the number of sections. But then the idea is you can acquire more space, and maybe move the next grade down. And we're adding more sections going up, so you're gonna need more. So it's gonna be the idea is that whole space would ideally ultimately be ours for our whole 7 through 12. And we think it's particularly important that grades 9th and above would be there, from the standpoint of the students they don't want to be in the same place in high school where they are in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right? They want to be in a new place, a new environment. And so in terms of retaining our students that have been here, I think that's really a kind of a piece, and have their own separate space.
Right. They can go to the high school.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the thinking. But it's early in the process, and yet it's gonna happen very fast if we're gonna be able to do it for next year. So
Well, I
this
guess
is
my
background.
only other question was, because I thought about that building a long time ago, and I was thinking, okay, you have 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th there, so you got 9, 10, 11. All right, kids of that age group, are they going to willingly go from that building to the gym that way? Or
Well,
is there no space?
it's
to-
likely that this would need to be a 3-phase piece,
Okay, got it.
where in the 3rd phase, which I don't know how many years down the road that would be, we build another gym, and, attached to that would likely be the long term. But with that, we wouldn't be able to necessarily afford to be able to do something like that in the phase when we buy that and build that building out. It would almost have to be phase 3.
Right, right.
So, but that's a fair question, yes.
All right.
I'm sorry, I kind of took a lot
No,
of your thunder
no,
from the
no, I'm-
governance, or from
Yeah.
the facilities committee report.
Yeah, no, you can't tell, but I just digitally crossed off 6.5.
Can't see it, but I think-
Yeah, this is all we talked about in the facilities report.
Yeah.
They asked the question, that's our.
Well, look, in all seriousness, I know I've been able to live there. There's a good dialogue, and it's as good a place as any, right? Facilities and finance are hat and glove, so it was a perfectly good time to have a discussion.
Thank you.
Very good. All right, any other questions for the Finance Committee? Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to approve the November financials and the Finance Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that takes us to 6.4, the Governance Committee.
Yeah, so we met on Thursday, December 11th virtually. Called the meeting order at 5 p.m. We continued through the review of the 200 series, mostly updating formatting for policies 203.5, 203.6, 206, 208. Those were all updated, and then we decided we need to get more clarification, research done on the library materials policy. So we tabled that till the February meeting to give us enough time to figure more out with that. We discussed concerns with the, the PE teachers. I think maybe Jonas and somebody was gonna discuss more with the PE teachers about
Yeah, I got like you.
the uniform thing, and before we make any official decisions in there, so we're gonna get more feedback on that.
Around the uniform policy.
Right.
And
right.
and particularly the
Uniform.
part of it that deals with uniforms.
Yep, yep. And then Nick was gonna investigate some sample policies for the gifted and talented, and report back on that, and get that back on the agenda once he gets that info. And then we reviewed policy 104 and 303, both with the second reading that has been updated on the website, and then in the packet for the board here was the second reading for policy 201, which was up for approval. And our future discussions will be the wellness policy, the food choices for students, again, review of annual policies, which we'll get into 514, 806, and then finalize our review of the 200 series, and at some point to the new student journalism policy. Did anyone have any questions or comments on any of those, or 201? And we're scheduled to meet again Thursday, January 9th at 5 p.m. virtually as well. I think because of the policy 201 to the second reading to get that adopted, I do have a motion to approve the governance meeting minutes and enter policy 201 into the second reading.
Okay. We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Have a motion and a second, any additional discussion? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? All right, that carries. Anything else, Joe?
That's it.
All right, and then we're at the 6.5 Facilities Committee. I was gonna entertain any final questions or discussions, but Jonas did cover everything that we had talked about, and like I said, you know, it's a pretty good time to talk about it in the finance section too, you know, because all of this stuff is gonna lead to making sure we're good stewards of resources. So I'll just put out a quick call and say, is there any additional discussion on that? If not, we can move on. Okay, that brings us to item 7. Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
Nick and teachers. Yeah.
Ready?
Right.
Yeah,
Almost sounds like a band, but yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So my name is Nick Rice. I think I've met everybody in this room. I'm the principal of grades 6 and above. We're here to talk a little bit about just how the high school's been going so far, give you all some updates, talk about some future thoughts. And really the people who are going to do the talking are the ones who do all the work, and that's our high school teachers. So Miss Chelsea Mason is our mathematics teacher, Miss Keely Tholen is social studies, and Miss Lexi Decker
Other way.
is social studies. Oh, what did I say?
ELA.
ELA, even though she's a social
Language
studies
arts.
license.
Yes.
So, yeah, take it away, and then take a chance for you guys to ask questions when we're done.
Hello, everybody. So, yes, we are expanded and we are piloting currently one class of 9th graders. 14 of those 9th graders were WLA students and 10 of them are new to WLA. So that's just a little bit of the background that we're kind of testing the waters with. We're trying to build upon our current programs here at K-8 with academic rigorous classes, smaller classes, and trying to instill those leadership skills into all of our students. What currently is going well is Lexi is able to offer some AP Human Geography material to all of our 9th graders. And the math, we've offered some online opportunities for students who maybe want to do a little bit more advanced math than the one that I cover in person. And several students are currently on track based off of their GPAs to be eligible for some PSEO options if they were to stay here at WLA and our future high school track. Some of the things that we have found challenging so far is basically because we have only one section, doesn't really allow us to have a lot of flexibility, especially with offering different levels of courses for different levels of students. And 42% of our students are new, so they don't really have that core knowledge foundation. They don't have that school culture is kind of missing. We're not really, Spirit Week and proms and things like that haven't really been on the plan with just 24 9th graders currently. So that's been a huge challenge. Our team has been meeting quite regularly this whole trimester 1 to try to figure out kind of the success criteria as we are expanding into this high school program. Ms. Jonas also conducted several meetings with all the 9th grade families to communicate kind of what we were trying to plan out for our future here at WLA for our high school program. What we kind of consider as a team that would be measures for success if we were to continue with this path that we want to go down is that 9th and 10th grade courses would provide rigor, obviously, and to prepare them for PSEO by 11th grade. We want our students here at WLA to earn college credits through all these AP courses that we're hopefully able to offer. And we think that most students would be able to earn college credits while at WLA, and then all students would be prepared and ready for college when they graduate. Those are what we would consider successful measures to track what we're doing here.
So PSEO is it's post-secondary education program, is a state-funded program in which high school students are allowed to attend college courses for free. State takes the money that would normally go to the schools. We get part of it here at the public charter schools, and then the rest goes to pay for tuition. It's a really great way for students to take advantage of a lot of things that we may have missed out on, and it's phenomenal for families. This is something that I've been involved in for the last 10 years or so. I ran the program at my previous school, so I'm really familiar with it, and that's something that I was excited about when taking the job here, is that they wanted to go in this direction. And I've seen the success that it brings. I've seen the community that it builds within the school, because the competition is no longer just, who's dating who, or who made the best shot at the game. It's who's getting into PSEO, who's gonna get college credit, who's gonna leave high school with a college degree on top of that. And this is coming from a school where there's over 50% EL and students who have large gaps. So coming to a school like this, where there's already a lot of high rigor, for our students, this is gonna just be the next step up in high school, and they're gonna be highly successful from what I've seen. So again, students can earn both high school and college credits simultaneously. There is kind of a ratio for formatting that, but I can break that down further if there's questions there. It offers a greater variety of courses. As we're piloting small groups, we want to do that slowly, build up a strong community here, and not just flush into 5 sections of everything. And so for our students who are here and have that small community feel, they can then take some courses here if they're not as academically successful in math, like I wasn't, but they're taking other courses in language arts or social studies that are higher, more advanced, more rigorous. The great thing about AP is you get the rigor and you have the option of taking the test, but if you don't pass or get a certain score, the colleges might not take it. So we can offer them a lot of rigor that way and expose students who may not be ready for college for a higher rigor, thus better preparing them. But PSEO offers them that next step of guaranteed college credit in classes that we just can't offer here with a smaller number of kids, because the more classes, the more staff, the more curriculum, the more everything. And then again, it's free college tuition. I mean, as a parent myself, still paying down my own student debts, it saves a lot. And when you can say, my kid went to WLA and graduated with their AA, or with so many AP credits, that's thousands of dollars saved for both student and family, and that's gonna draw in a lot more families knowing that my student can be successful from K-12. I'm not gonna bounce around, I've got stability, and that's the draw for me, was I'm gonna go to somewhere with stability. And so I think the direction that we as high school and middle school teachers see the school going is rigor, high expectations, leadership skills, but still that small community setting where students can explore their own personal interests. So. I strongly believe that we're gonna provide better preparation for our kids. They're gonna leave here ready to either start in a college bachelor's program, they're done with their generals, or they're just gonna walk in far more prepared than, say, someone like me who didn't do any PSEO, and so the first college class is like, whoa, there's 300 people in here. That's a little daunting. Our kids won't have to do that. They're gonna walk in prepared, ready to go. They're gonna be the leaders in their future college courses. And it's a proven model of success. I've, again, led a program with students who are far less educated from the bottom up than kids here, and seen them be very, very successful. And that's both for students in special education and ELL students. So it is a possibility for everyone, and I believe that the route we are going is even better preparing them if we're following this rigor from K through 10. So, do you have any questions there that I can?
Couple of questions about this, and they're for you specifically, or anybody that wants to answer them. Macro, from a PSEO standpoint, what percentage of kids that actually get into PSEO end up getting that associate's degree before the end of their high school life?
Pretty small, but
Well,
depends.
it depends, because I'm coming from a small charter school where I would say 40% of my kids were earning AAs.
Okay.
But the parents were willing to pay for some summer classes to help them get through it.
Sure.
Just because you don't want to overload them. I always said 4 classes was the minimum maximum for your first semester so that you can step in. I can support, the school can support, and if you are feeling that you are not ready, we can bring you back before, grades are finalized and that kind of stuff.
And it's about choices and options.
Yeah.
Sure,
So
no, makes sense.
the option is there and the students can make the choice. And a lot of students will choose to take like general classes.
Yeah.
And then they'll still move on to a 4-year university. So they may never actually earn the AA. It depends what they want with their life and their career.
Yeah, and a lot of that gets to, is there a good roadmap for how it transfers? And
Yeah.
are we
Absolutely.
equipping our parents to understand that? Now, and I'm talking about coming at it from a parent, is I battle that a little bit, right? Is understanding how all of this, is gonna fit into the big picture, which is why I asked the question. And the second question is more of an emotional or gut reaction type of question, right? I will confess, I have a tough time having a frame of reference for this, right? The school that I graduated from was 30 years old when I went there. My dad actually was part of the group of kids that took boxes over to the new building. So I haven't been able to visualize something of being pioneers in this respect. And so I guess my question is, how's morale? Are these kids feeling like they're on kind of a cool new adventure being, the founders of this thing?
It's hard to gauge with such a small group, to be honest.
No, it's the world's most unfair question. I'll answer that.
Yeah.
I wanna ask you,
I think I have an answer. You guys will-
Yeah, you've talked to the parents and stuff.
So one of the pushbacks I got from the parent was we were explaining all of this was, well, what makes this different from other high schools? Any high school in Minnesota, you can take PSEO classes. Why does that mean we're being rigorous? And one, I talked about, well, really the rigorous and the preparation to be ready to take the classes. But I also think what's different with us is that we can really provide that personalization, and as small as we are, figure out what the right path, what the right number of classes, have that dialogue with families and encourage. And I do think that's what makes it a little bit different. And so it'll be different for every child. For a lot of them, they'll have a lot of pride in taking college courses, right? Others of them, it may not be such an important thing to them. And, some may take one class and some may take all their classes, depending on what they're ready for and what they're into. But really being able to personalize it in a small environment. And then some of the courses you can take online, where they could even be doing the courses at school, not even.
Yep, and I've had that, and it's been really successful. And I think the biggest difference is that we can promote it as this is your next big step, versus and say that it's open to everyone, whereas you go to a public school, the requirement from the state of Minnesota is that you put it on your website. They don't hold PSEO nights, there are no information sessions, there are.
They, not to interrupt, but they
Yeah.
typically prefer you don't go take classes in PSEO because they lose the revenue from the
Right.
students, which would be true for us, but we would be building our model around that, and even in terms of space, if we don't, even with the other space over there, we won't have enough space if we,
Right.
before very long, if we go through high school and we're not having some PSEO be part of the mix. So that's what is a little bit different too, like, they will, and then if you go and talk to your counselors or people about it, they won't be, well, I don't want to speak for every counselor or say this is true, but there's a tendency in my experience for not to always really be highly encouraging of going this route and wanting to keep their kids in their school and so on and so forth. So it's just an opposite approach, and a lot of the kids probably wouldn't, even if they could, wouldn't access it or not access it.
They wouldn't
because
even, most don't know. Most kids just don't know, and if they do, it's because they're targeted by the school, and they're either a teacher, an older sibling, somebody else says, oh, this is what I did, and then they'll go take 1 or 2 classes.
So that's what makes it different. And what makes our 9th and 10th is we're really focused, going to be, what we've talked about and what our plan is to be really focused on in our classes in 9th and 10th grade, providing the rigor and then really providing some of the key skills to be successful in college courses. Really an emphasis on the writing and things that you need to do to write college papers successfully.
And already, like with how the kids are acting and feeling, I'm teaching AP material where they can take the AP test. And once I found that out, a lot of kids were really excited. And that's kind of like the same route as taking a college class, like harder work, harder material. They have to put more effort in. When kids were finding out that they could take the AP test in my class, a lot of them got really excited and they were ready and they want to do the extra materials. They want to watch the online videos. They ask me more questions. So like them knowing this is coming too, I think a lot of them would be very excited once they know about it. So once they knew about my class and how they could take it, a lot of them were excited. None of them were like, oh my gosh, I have to do this, or at least not to me. So that's exciting.
Yeah, and I would say that the grade levels from what because I teach 7-9, and looking at the students in 7 and 8, they're very successful students. I mean, these are high rigor kids. These are not just, let's take all the generals we can and get out quick and easy. We have very strong academic students coming up, and we have to be able to support them, and the best way to do that is rigor. And knowing the elementary teachers and seeing some of these kids coming in the elementary, we need to just keep pushing higher and higher. There's no other choice other than to give the families the rigor and the high expectations that they're coming with.
I think we're not done with the presentation yet, right?
No.
More pages.
Yes.
Is that us too?
Yeah, so the students get the rigorous college prep and college classes that they can choose at a bigger traditional high school while attending a school in a small, safe, caring, and personalized environment, which I think we can have met. Creating high-quality, viable paths to meet graduation requirements for all students. With so few students in our cohort, that makes it a little difficult, just because they are a broad spectrum of needs. And that's what you're gonna get with one group of 24. The more kids you get, the narrower the spectrum starts to get. And then you start to get a little bit more cohesive. But I think next year, as we continue up, we're gonna start seeing a lot more of that need for academic rigor, challenge, and expectation, because it's already coming up from the elementary. And then we've launched basketball, archery, robotics. Other things are coming. I know, what else have the kids been, there's a lot of buzz going on about I know the girls' basketball is coming, so there's buzz about that. Then there is the small number of students makes providing experiences such as prom, homecoming, that kind of stuff a little bit more challenging. They don't get that traditional high school homecoming and everything that we may have experienced. But again, it's a trade-off. Are you looking for rigor and leadership, or are you looking to just because a lot of our kids, they've got friends in sports outside of school, they're still gonna go to friends' homecomings, friends' proms. It's not like they're just closed off to just the WLA community. Our community is pretty far-reaching across the Twin
And to
Cities.
emphasize, we're saying with this first group that's only one class, this is,
Yeah.
as it gets bigger and bigger, there'll be more you're able to offer. And not that we won't try and do things for this first group, but it's gonna be hard with such a small group to do them and have the same way it would look if you have 3 sections and, 60-some kids in each grade, or then it's just one small group.
That was the nature of the question, right? It's gonna take some,
Yeah. But I think part of my meetings with families that we talked about, that I had before Thanksgiving with every 9th grade families, was to really, because I wasn't here when they enrolled last spring or last winter, and to really be honest about what we can and can't do with this, so that they, if they're trying to be committed here for the next 4 years, they know what our limitations might be, and not that we won't try, maybe we can try and partner with another charter school to do some things, or, but there will be some limitations with such a small group, and trying to be honest and upfront about that as we can, and there's trade-off, because there's advantages of being really small too, right? And this is where I was supposed to take over, right here, and we already talked about facilities a lot, but if you go to the next one, just the facilities will impact the number of sections. This is where we're at right now, this first column. We have 9 sections between grade 6 through 9. The most we can do in our current space is what's up there in the second column. There are 5 full-size classrooms. This room would have to be a classroom, or board group meetings would have to go back to the cafeteria. Some rooms, like a special ed room would need to go into a smaller space. An ELL room would need to go into a smaller space for a year until we had the space we need. But that's the most we could do. It could be configured differently. You could do 3 8th grade sections instead of 5 6th grade sections or something, depending on what we decided. But we would likely do at least 2 additional sections and not have to move as many people into smaller spaces if we're able to acquire the space across the street. May be able to even do, well, no, I think that's probably the most we would do, just in terms of growth. And but so there would be a few more, and maybe that 9th and 10th, those 3 sections would go across the street. If you kept it to 2, it's possible you could look at doing 5 sections across the street, but we're thinking, depending what the architects come with, that might be tight. And so trying to figure out, is it better to be tight, or is 3 sections gonna feel enough for the 9th and 10th graders to feel like they're at school, and that be too isolated. And so some of those are the discussions that we'll need to have in terms of what way we go. It's clear that applications for enrollment won't limit, the space will limit it, and beyond that, making sure we can get the right staff would be the other limitation. And so, but that's just to give you an idea as you're looking at what next year, we anticipate having 2 sections in 9th grade next year. And really, it would be concerning if we don't, just because we don't want to have 2 classes having the same limitations that we have with this first group.
right.
And so, optimistic we would be able to, and there's some ways that will work better for everybody. And I don't see it being an issue down the road, because when you look at our current 6th grade is 4 sections. Next year, we're likely to have 5 sections. So we were drawing with our own kids from 38 8th graders last year. By the time this 6th grade group gets through, you're drawing from almost 100. If we go to 5 6th grade, you're drawing from 120. So even if you have half of them, if you have 120 and half of them stay, that's 60.
Right.
Right? And you get 6 more, and you got 3 classes of 22. And so,
It's getting the train out of the station.
yes, and it's making it quality enough for the smaller groups to be ready for that and to be able to build it. And so that's the piece there.
Yeah.
And so as we've been talking about, it's just a matter now of we need to figure out what we're gonna finalize our plan, or have at least a plan for what number of sections next year. Really clearly clarify by really early January, what the course offerings will be for 25, 26, so that we can put together materials to re-recruit our current 8th graders, and really share with them what we're offering, and that we're planning to expand to have Spanish at a minimum, and looking at some music pieces and so on and so forth, and select curriculum. And then it's a matter of getting out and getting the right people, the teachers to add to our great group. With our great group of teachers we have right now in 7th through 9, some will likely stay teaching 7th or 8th grade, and some may go teach the high school. So, either way, we'll need to recruit at least one of each content area, whichever directions they go between the two. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
That was excellent, thank you.
Yeah, that was exciting.
Thank you, teachers. Appreciate you being here.
I have to excuse myself to go coach a hockey game. Thanks all for
Awesome.
Good luck. You
All right.
all can feel free to leave. You don't need us to. Nicole did prepare a very good presentation for you next, but
We'll see.
Right.
tough act to follow, huh?
I know.
Right.
Hello.
Hey, Nicole.
Alrighty, so as you know, my position this year is Dean of Students, which is behavior. So I'm just going to provide kind of a quick update on the new systems that we are using. They look a bit different than last year. So I'm going to provide an overview, give you some trends, and then give you more data to look at. Perfect. So why we're kind of having these stricter behavior protocols and procedures is that we know all students can achieve high academic standards, and we want to provide them with a place where they can do that. We're striving to create a positive and engaging learning environment for all, limiting those behaviors that can cause disruptions and distractions, and just a safe place for all students, and making it accessible for all stakeholders, teachers, staff, paras, all of it. So what we're doing specifically with elementary is we have kind of two areas. We have a green room, and then we have a redirection room. The green room is for students that just need a little help regulating their bodies. So maybe they didn't eat and they just need something to eat. Maybe they're really tired and just need to lay down for 5 minutes. Maybe they just have so much energy because they're excited to be in school and they need to jump on the trampoline. So we have different things in our green room that can accommodate whatever that kiddo needs. The redirection room is when they get to visit me. That's a little bit more of they weren't doing their job. And so they work with me and we try and fix that behavior. So sometimes that's calling home, sometimes it's writing an apology note to a friend or to a teacher. Just depending on the severity, the frequency that the student visits me, those things change a bit. But that is when it is a bit more of a firm talking to versus the green room where it is, oh sure. I'll steal one too. Thank you. Which is a bit more not purposeful distraction, so we're just trying to help them get on the right path. Social stories is another thing that we utilize in the green room and the redirection room. And for those not familiar with a social story, it shows kids like a situation that they might have been experiencing. So if someone's like constantly blurting out in class, the social story will show someone that's blurting out in class and how that impacts others, and also how you can fix it. And then if there's ever an emergent situation, Mr. Exner or I will push into the classroom and immediately support the teacher with whatever that need might be. So different interventions that we are utilizing. So basically what I've done is the data that you actually have in front of you, I analyze the data and I try and find trends or patterns, and then I create interventions that support that individual student. So if I notice that one student always has a really hard time in between lunch and specials, then that would be when me or Ms. Bree, who is a behavior specialist at our school, will go and work with that student in that transition time to help be proactive in our approach versus reactive. Some examples of different interventions that we have been utilizing so far this year are chewies, which is like a necklace that has like a safe thing for the student to chew on. So a lot of kids that have a really hard time like just controlling their mouths will use a chewy. It's very helpful. Weighted vests, flexible seating, which is like wobble chairs or cushions, different things like that that allow them a little bit more ability than just sitting in a normal chair for long periods of time. Scheduled movement breaks, scheduled social stories, and then behavior tracking that has a positive incentive attached to it. So they work with the teacher, they talk about how they've been doing throughout each lesson, and if they are doing all the things, teacher sets the goal beforehand, then they would get to pick out something that they're working for. We have that be not an extrinsic reward, like we're not motivating them with like candy or things like that, but maybe like special time with another adult that they're familiar with, or they get to help the teacher lead the class for 5 minutes, things like that where they're still getting excited about working hard intrinsically versus those extrinsic motivators. So here's some of those, the data that I've put together. So for this specific one, it's not going to be in your packet. This one is going to be the percent of students that have 3 or more ODRs, which is an office disciplinary referral, so far this year. So when we're looking at these numbers, they can seem quite high, but when you break it down and look at which kids are really having a hard time, you can see that the percentages are quite low. So only 4% of the whole kindergarten class has had 3 or more ODRs. And then you can see those trends continue. So 12% of first grade, 5 in second grade, less than 1% in third grade, 0% fourth grade, fifth grade is 3%, sixth is 3%, 2 is 2% for seventh grade, I'm mixing them up, eighth grade is 0, and then ninth grade is a bit higher at 26%. We also know that with high school, it is a new venture for us, so it is just helping with those students and just ironing out all of the different things as we go. So it's a learning process for that as well.
And we chose 3 ODRs because that was 1 a month.
Yeah.
This is for September, October, November. So if they're having more than one behavior that leads to a referral a month, we felt like that the student is struggling. And so when you look at the total number of data, as many kids as we have, it sounds like a lot of office visits and referrals. But when you break it down this way, how many kids are really, demonstrating problematic behavior that ongoing over and over, it's a very small percentage. And so that was just a good way to look at it.
Yeah, and then just some more trends. So I picked kind of middle of September because that's truly when kids are back in school, right? Those first couple weeks are a lot of just learning expectations. So from the week of 9/22 to just the week before Thanksgiving, because that Thanksgiving week was only a 2-day week, so that would have been quite the outlier. But if we look at those, there's actually a percent decrease in behaviors of about 35%. We will see behaviors go back up last week and this week because it's the weeks before winter break. That's just always how it happens. But we're still doing pretty solid in keeping those behaviors down. We're working pretty hard on doing those proactive approaches and sticking to our interventions so that we aren't going to see a big uptick in behaviors. And then the day of the week breakdown you'll also see is on your front packet or front page of your packet, and it's this middle graph. So what that is showing you is it's saying all of the ODRs on Mondays that happened in September was 41. All of the ODRs that happened on Mondays in October was 56, and all of them in November was 40. So we're actually seeing trends of almost all except Friday of the ODRs are going down per day, which is also a great thing for our school to have less behaviors. Friday we actually saw an increase of about 50%, but it's Friday, so we know now we have more free dress days because kids are a little bit more excited on free dress days. Things like that. So we are working, Mr. Exner and I are working pretty hard on figuring out Fridays and trying to do some more proactive approaches to try and limit those and get those behaviors back down. I think that might be my last one.
So it's Free Dress Friday more than the other Fridays?
Yeah, typically. Mhm.
There's a lot of
And
subs
Spirit.
on Fridays too.
Yeah,
Mhm.
And
so I
Spirit
think I know.
Fridays
but-
also.
That one I'm not sure. I don't
Less?
think so for Spirit Wear Fridays, but I can't definitely say that, but it doesn't ring a bell. And normally when they're harder days, I remember them, but and then what I have in front of you are just some different pieces of data that I've put together based off of the ODRs that we've been seeing. So there's lots of different graphs, and I won't kind of talk through all of them. I'll just kind of give you an opportunity to look at them. But I will briefly go over it. The calendar is going to be, the red days are going to be the highest numbers, orange are middle, blue is low. So we see Wednesdays and Fridays, which is what we've already identified as our hardest days of the week. Time of day fluctuates. There's actually another graph that shows you time of day, a bit more broken down here on the bottom of the page. Lunch is always going to be a harder one. Kids are hungry, they're excited, and they get to talk to their friends. So that's always kind of a time of day that we're going to see an uptick in behaviors as well. And then you can just see first grade seems like there's quite a high number. But with that, we've actually seen ODRs for our first grade go down a lot, even in just like the past 2 weeks. So I think that the interventions we have in place are actually really beneficial for that first grade group. So we'll hopefully not see a huge increase with that going forward. And then the last page is just kind of a breakdown of what those behaviors are and the locations in which they're happening. Not overly surprising that our classroom is going to be where the most behaviors are, as the kids are in the classroom for the majority of the day. And then we can see that the physical touch, like the pushing or slapping type incidents are highest. And I'm pretty vigilant on making sure all of those things are reported. And so that's also a piece of why I don't really have numbers to compare from prior years, because I am very diligent on making sure teachers are filling out ODRs if they call for behavior support, so that I can figure out these trends and make adjustments. So the ODRs, it's hard to look at last year's data compared to this, because I'm not the same person as last year, so I do things just a bit differently. So hopefully next year, if I'm invited back into this position, we'll have some more information to compare prior year to this school, to the current school year. So
We didn't tell you that your contract was a 10-year contract.
Right. Yes. Yes. So, but yeah, so that's kind of what I have, and I'm sure you might have more questions as you look more into the data. Always feel free to reach out. I love talking about data. But if you do have any questions.
I just have one, is,
Yeah.
and I think I might know, but what was bewitching about Tuesdays in October?
Tuesdays in October.
Yeah, it was 67, I'm looking at this.
I know, you know what, I don't know, I'd have to go back and look.
The 29th was a Tuesday, did we do some Halloween thing then? That's what I was wondering.
Thursday, we did trunk or treat.
Trunk or treat was
Okay,
Thursday.
yeah, so no, because, yeah, the Tuesday was the 29th, it wouldn't have been Halloween, so.
And I will say, looking at that, like, we
Yeah.
know that November 24th was only a 2-day week. So that's why, this is the bottom one, sorry, I got sidetracked. But that is why, like, October 13th, that was a short week. So some of those really big divots, as much as I'd like to say, like, we were just rocking it, would also be a part of, like, just shortened weeks or professional development
We
days
have
and
more
things like
Mondays
that.
and Tuesdays in October.
Yeah, that's what I was
Of
thinking
school,
about.
then we had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because you had no.
Okay,
You had
it might have
no-
been just, yeah, it might have been a 5 Tuesday deal.
Yeah, it was 5 versus 4.
Okay, okay,
Tuesday was the Friday.
right. yeah.
Which is-
This is-
Well, good point too, yeah,
Yeah.
in that week, yeah.
right. Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevens.
You're welcome.
And just so you know, as a reminder, and this will come up later in our closed meeting, but the 3 things that I said until I heard differently from the board we were working on this year is number 1 focus were the school-applied behavior, communication, and developing a plan to increase our staff salaries that was within the budget. And so part of the reason I asked Ms. Stevens to present on this today was I wanted to make sure that we had addressed all 3 of those things at board meetings the first half of the year. And didn't have a at least one time where we address each of them the second half of the year. This was really exciting.
Mhm. Makes good sense. All right, I think that moves us on to item 8, which is the consent agenda. That's a roll call vote. This is things that are considered routine that we've bundled together. We can certainly discuss them. There's 2 items on it, which is the approval of the November 24th, 2024 meeting minutes and approve the December personnel update.
So let me just jump in. Technically, the idea is that if we do want to discuss any items there, the board member is supposed to ask in, just for future reference, not that we can't, which in the approval of the agenda, the way as the board member would ask, I would like to have this item removed from the consent agenda for discussion.
Okay.
So the idea of the consent agenda, the other things that shouldn't need discussion, we can just vote and approve them, the routine.
Which I'm fine with, so I think,
I mean, but
I could do with a note to that effect, that just says, okay, when we approve the agenda, then next time around, I'll do a reminder of people saying, look, if there's something in the roll call agenda, or the consent agenda, excuse me, then now it's time.
Maybe, Ms. Cassidy, could we, under approval agenda for starting next month, have a little note to that effect, just like we have for the consent agenda in italics? That's a routine nature. Under approval agenda, if there are any items board members would like removed from the consent agenda for discussion, that now is the time to request so. Something like that. If it's not right there, we won't remember it.
Well, the aging brain under the gray hair.
I wouldn't remember it. So.
Okay, that said, I think that's a fair point. Is there any desire to, or need to discuss these items amongst the board? Okay, and so, hearing none, then we need a motion and a second, right, to approve the whole thing?
A motion and
Roll
then a
call.
roll call.
There we go.
Okay, so we do need a motion. So, I will move that we approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
We're actually gonna do a roll call vote.
Oh, okay, great.
Mike Bullitt,
Yes.
Colleen Lautenbach,
Yes.
Allison Pitt,
Yes.
Greg Save,
Yes.
Carly Sherrill,
Yes.
Joe Valentine.
Yes.
Oh, Jolene and Jolene's group.
Yes.
Is that everybody?
Yep.
Okay. Now that brings us to 9 action items, which I don't think Shelby had anything, and her and I didn't talk about anything with that, which takes us to 10 board communication future agenda items. Is there anything on anybody's list that,
We know we need to talk about facilities in January for sure.
right, but that's gonna be with the normal course of communications, right? I wouldn't see that as part of this. Am I missing something?
Well, I think part of the idea is that, at least this is what it was, that now this place, Cassidy can make any notes here that we want to make sure we don't forget to have on the January agenda.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
if there's something that we talk about with that in January, we put it in the notes here,
Mhm.
minutes, so that when Cassidy's starting to put together the January agenda for us, you can just look back at this.
Fair enough. The facility is gonna be a big deal then.
Yep, see, that's what it does, yeah.
Okay.
Is there anything else we've talked about that's coming for next month?
You said there could be a special board meeting potentially if things move fast with that building, possibly. Don't know.
Possibly,
Yeah.
I think it's unlikely, but I just wanted you guys to be aware that
Yeah.
it's possible that there could be a reason that we would want to have a board
Yeah.
meeting or a work session or
So, and it
something.
may be appropriate to have a closed session meeting on that topic, right?
Depending if it involves negotiations.
Right.
So if we're discussing negotiating strategy and what the board is willing to pay, then it's possible it could be a closed session. That's one of the exceptions to the open meeting law.
Right.
And it's also why we don't want to say too much about it here in a public meeting like today, because
Correct.
people who are negotiating with be listening.
Mhm.
So we're trying to decide what we can do.
So for next meeting, will we probably hear back from you about the PM driveline safety concerns?
In all likelihood, yes. With at least a plan of what we're piloting under presentation. That's a good one. Or depending on what we come up with and how big a deal it is, it could be in the superintendent report. So you can put it as an item, but depending on where we're at, we could move it to the superintendent report.
Did Woodbury give any suggestions?
Yeah, they had some ideas, but then the question is the challenges and the details, but they wondered if there might be some something we could offer after school for like a 20, 30-minute program and see if we could get any parents that's targeted for parents that do drive pickup, that we can offer our homework help or something, and those parents to have a later pickup. But, we have to figure out who can do it, how it would work, and how we communicate that was it. But that was a way, like, if you can get 30 or 40 families that do this, taking that many out should be enough to keep it from backing up there.
Right.
And so, but we just didn't, this was end of last week, and when we planned for this week, we didn't feel like we could get together and try and work on the details this week.
Does that need to have board approval? I feel
Not
like
necessarily.
Board doesn't need to
No.
make that decision.
They wouldn't necessarily need to approve that. And again, that's why I think.
You might have to
I think-
approve funds if you want to get teachers to stay, though.
Right, but.
I don't know that they're gonna stay for free.
No, so it depends if we can do it within the budget we already have or not, which is a fair point where it could. I think where it more is appropriate that we be having the discussion now is that if we're gonna go to something where we are gonna require, in the future, families to have a pickup time and make a major change like that, even if it's not a board approval thing, it's something the board should be aware of and have talked about and be ready to talk about with families that are not happy about it, if that's what if we got to that point. So I think it could be leading to potentially a much more major change in the future if we're not able to solve it in a way that's sustainable with smaller measures.
I bet you could get volunteers.
Yeah, and again, the number of volunteers we would need this year, and the cost, and can we get the staff even with paying, and what does that look like, and so I think there's just different layers to it, and at this point, it probably isn't anything that would need board approval or a formal board discussion, but it could become something that even if it's not a voting topic is relevant enough for the board. We should have some discussion to make sure we're all kind of in agreement where we're going and able to address if we need to. It's just with adding considerably more students, the problem's gonna get more challenging. And the city's concern, which was very legitimate, in the shorter term was how many more families are gonna be driving their kids with winter weather. So it's not just where we're at now, but how much worse is it gonna get in January, in these months with winter weather.
The organization of the roads in winter is also, will
Yes.
decrease.
But they also were very complimentary on how much progress we've made from when they were here like a year ago fall, and how it improved last year, and then I see it improving again in terms of the pieces we're doing on our end. They really recognize that we're committed to it and think that we are really trying, and they're just still concerned with safety. And it's a legitimate concern when they described it to me, what they described. And they didn't, I don't think it matters if you have another person out there, people out there are doing what they need to do. Some people are just frustrated and aren't gonna follow what you're telling them. And some of them are families from us, and some of them are people going to the other building. It's both. It's not one or the other, is what their observation
Those
is.
guys in that building or whatever, that's all we need to do.
Yep.
Just get rid of those guys.
Yeah, you're right. So, yes.
Okay. We captured that. Anything else for item 10, any other items for reflection? Okay. Item 11, housekeeping. Our next meeting is Thursday, January 23rd, same place, 5:30. And that takes us to item 12, where we can entertain a motion to adjourn the public part of the meeting tonight.
I'll make a motion to adjourn our meeting.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.
Cass, are you able